Yes.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Great to see you all. We are continuing in the Path of the Just, page 141. And we've just started talking about how one goes about acquiring the attribute, the midah, the quality of zerizus. And just to recap, what is zerizus? Zerizus means instead of allowing things to, instead of procrastinating in our divine service, in our service of Hashem, in our commitment to our spiritual growth, we look for opportunities and we jump on them, and we take advantage of opportunities to get closer to Hashem through His mitzvos, through the mitzvos that He gave us, and we don't miss those opportunities by, letting them sit too long, because if we do, those opportunities tend to disappear. Actually, somebody told me a story on Shabbos. We had a guest over on Shabbos, told me a terrible story, but I'll tell it to you because it relates to this topic. He said 12 years ago, he was walking here in Jerusalem with his daughter, and who was at the time was about 10 or so, and his two boys who were, his two younger daughters who were like little, like 3 and 4. And they were walking on a street in the neighborhood, and he was holding the hands of the little ones. And they were on the sidewalk. It was kind of a busy sidewalk, and he saw up ahead an old bubby. And the bubby was pushing a cart, she had been shopping. They call them bubby carts. You take them to the market, you fill it up with food, and you wheel it home. So this bubby was walking with her bubby cart, and it was clearly heavy, and she was pushing it. And my friend Scott had this idea. He had this thought, you know what? I'm going to go help her, with her cart, because it's clearly very heavy, and it's a burden for her. But then he thought to himself, but you know what? I've got my 2 little kids. I can't let go of their hands. It's a pretty busy neighborhood. It's where, there's a lot of people, there's cars, there's bikes, there's everything. So he's like hesitated. And he said, as he hesitated whether or not to go help this woman or not, he said he watched, and she fell backwards and hit her, and he said split her head open on the sidewalk and died on the spot. He told me this story on Shabbos, and I was like, oh my God. And he said he's still, like, to this day, like, not a day goes by where he doesn't think about that, and he's still beating himself up over not helping her. So I said to him, but you couldn't help her. You were watching your kids, you were taking care of your kids. And he said, I know, but I hesitated for that 1 minute, and in that one moment that I hesitated, this terrible, horrible thing happened. So I don't know why I'm telling you this story, other than the fact that sometimes opportunities come around, and you literally have to jump on the opportunities. In this case, I still think that he should not have jumped on the opportunity, because his biggest responsibility is obviously to his little children. But it's just as an illustration of, like, opportunities come around, and if we don't jump on those moments and those opportunities, then we lose them. We lose the opportunities. At the best, the opportunities go away, and sometimes other things can happen. So that's a nice little story to start off the week, to cheer you guys up on a frigid, cold Sunday morning in Chicago. Okay, so where are we? So we're on chapter 8, where we're talking about how do we acquire this trait? Okay, we've described it, we've identified it, we've broken it down into what the parts are. But now, how do I do it? How do I get there? How do I incorporate this quality into who I am and what I'm all about? So the first thing he said on page 140 and the top of 141 is meditation and contemplation upon the what I like to say, the reality of the mitzvos. I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that we tend to think of the mitzvos as, this word, by the way, is the worst word. This word has done more in my mind to bring down Judaism than just about anything. We relate to the mitzvahs as being rituals. Rituals. What are rituals? Rituals are basically things that you do repeatedly with no actual meaning or purpose, or you just do them because they form they create some value in your life, so you do them, but they don't have inherent meaning. They don't have inherent value. They're just rituals. There's things that you do, like every morning you wake up and you do this and you do this and you do this. They're habits, they're rituals. That is not what the mitzvos are. The mitzvos are not rituals. The mitzvos are, as we say over and over again, these are opportunities for connection. These are opportunities to build the relationship between me and my creator. So if I understand that, and I realize that that's what the mitzvos are, and that if I want to achieve my goal in this world as getting closer to Hashem and getting closer to my creator every day, and the mitzvahs are the way that I get there, and the only way to get there, and I can make up all my own versions of how to reach spiritual heights, but the bottom line is, for a Jew, the pathway to get to that spirituality is through the mitzvos. And when I understand that's what a mitzvah is, and when I understand every time I do a mitzvah, whether it's a mitzvah between me and another person, giving tzedakah, or helping somebody in a moment of need, or whether it's a mitzvah between me and Hashem, directly between me and God, putting on my tefillin, prayer, kosher, whatever the mitzvah is, I have to contemplate and internalize and know that these are not just rituals and traditions. That's another word, tradition, right? We think of Judaism as tradition. Well, guess what? If it's just a tradition, well, sometimes it's good to change traditions because traditions get old and stale. But it's not what it is. It's not tradition. It's pathways to spiritual connection. So if we know that and we understand that and we've internalized that and we contemplate that and we meditate on that idea, then we're not going to let mitzvah opportunities fly by. We're going to grab them. We're going to jump on them. We're going to take advantage of them because we know that they are the tools that we have to reach, to fill our purpose in this world, really, which is, connecting to our creator. That's why we're here. Okay, so that's the first, that was the first thing that we spoke about in terms of how to acquire this midah, by truly contemplating the intensity of it and the value of it and what it can really achieve and accomplish for us. Okay, so now we continue. An additional avenue of contemplation that is particularly useful in inspiring a person toward zrizus, towards this quality. However, what can intensify this inspiration is focusing on the many kindnesses that the Holy One, blessed be He, bestows upon a person at all times and at every moment, and the great wonders that He does for him from the moment of his birth until the very last day of his life. For the more a person focuses on and contemplates these matters, the more he will recognize his great debt to the Almighty, who is so good to him. These thoughts will be the means to prevent him from becoming lazy or lax in his divine service. Okay, so this is a really, really powerful idea. We need to set aside time and quiet, focused time to really think about all of the chesed, all of the kindness that Hashem has done for us in our whole lives. And when we go through experiences where we see Hashem's kindness, we have to pause and take it in and recognize it and acknowledge it. And what that should do naturally is create within us a deep, deep yearning to, so to speak, give back to Hashem. Think about your own parents. If you think about a child and a parent, the more the child can have gratitude and recognize and appreciate what the parent has done for them, the more the child naturally wants to respond by coming through for the parent and doing what the parent wants. Same thing with Hashem and the mitzvah and the kindness and the chesed that Hashem does for us. With Hashem's, the more we are aware of Hashem's love and his kindness and how he's, from the moment we came into this world and before we came into this world, please God, my daughter Talia is going to have her first child in a couple of weeks. And, and you think about, I think about this every day, the chesed that Hashem is doing for that fetus inside the womb. I mean, it's nothing, it's pure, total miracle, and Dr. Wenner, who delivered probably tens of thousands of babies, would be the first one. That never gets old, right, Dr. Wenner? Right? You never stop appreciating the miracle of that. And you've told me that before. And it's a miracle from before you're born, from the moment of conception, the miracle of what goes into what, and from that moment until this very second of my life, every breath, every beat of my heart, everything that's happened to me, every good thing, every difficult thing, every challenge, everything in my life, I can realize and appreciate and see Hashem's chesed in that. And when I do that, what's my natural response? I want to do for Hashem. How do I do for Hashem? You can't do anything for Hashem. He has everything. What's the one and only thing you can give to Hashem? The only thing you can give to Hashem is to actualize the potential that he gave you, because that's what he wants to see. He wants to see you become the person that he built you to be. So how do I do that? I do the mitzvos. The mitzvos are what builds me up as a human being, as a moral human being, as an ethical human being, as a spiritual human being, as a wise human being. So the more I'm aware of Hashem's kindness in my life, the more I'm naturally going to be inclined to want to do for Hashem. And the way I do for Hashem is by doing the mitzvos and coming closer to him. That's all he wants, that closeness and that connection. Let's just finish this and then we'll take a break for questions and comments. For indeed, he will reason, a person who's going through this thought process will reason, since he surely cannot compensate Hashem, blessed be for his kindness. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay Hashem back? There's no way to pay Hashem back for every breath he's ever given me, for every heart, every beat of my heart, every wonderful blessing that I have in my life, for my children, for my health, for all the different things that are good in my life. So I can't do that. So what am I gonna naturally, how am I gonna react naturally? I'm gonna react by saying he should at least offer thanks to his name and fulfill his commandments. That's all I can do. All I can do is be thankful to Hashem, express my gratitude to Hashem, and do what he wants from me, which is to come closer to him. How? Through his commandments. Okay, so that is another dimension to acquiring this attribute of Zerizus, and I'm curious how this resonates with you all.
David?
Yes.
So
morning,
the term ritual circumcision is really not a preferable term, because ritual gives it the impression it's designed to make it in contradistinction to surgical circumcision or medical. But
right.
By saying it's ritual, it loses the tremendous.
So let's change it. Let's change it.
Is.
Let's change it to spiritual circumcision.
Yeah. No, I mean,
yeah. No, for sure. I mean, look, in the end of the day, we have a language that we speak, and the language that we speak, words limit ideas. So whenever you take an idea and you package it in any form of verbiage, Les just joined us. Even if you're Les and you have an incredible ability to package concepts and ideas in magnificent verbiage, it's still limiting. Hi, Les. It's still limiting. It's still limiting the idea into the words that you're using to convey the idea. So we have no choice. We have to use words like ritual, circumcision, or whatever. But we have to also know and be careful when we use the word ritual or the word tradition. We have to be aware of the limitations of what and implications of those words, and not begin to think that that's what the mitzvahs are, that the mitzvahs are just rituals or just traditions. So it's not that we shouldn't use those words. We have to use words to convey ideas. But when we use words, we should be aware of the deeper meaning that the words can't convey. Okay, any other does this make sense? Like, if you think about this idea, contemplating all the chesed that Hashem has done for me in my life in order to spur me and encourage me in my fulfillment of my mitzvos, does that seem to logically, does that make sense? Does that resonate with you? I want to hear what you have to say on that. Yes, Father, you're on mute. You're muted, Pops. You're muted.
It's a hard concept. You really have to have 100% amuna to feel that way. But one thing, as you were talking, that I'm thinking that is really one of the worst terms that you can think of or say in your life is taking things for granted. Taking things for granted from Hashem, from your mate, from your friends, from everybody. That's a big obstacle to overcome.
Oh, big.
Right. When we think that we expect things to be a certain way. There's no reason to expect things that are going to be a certain way. Just because something has been this way until now doesn't mean it's going to be this way in an hour from now or tomorrow or whatever. And, life shows that over and over again. So yeah, taking things for granted is the opposite of this. What's in order, it's an interesting idea. Like, you never would, if I had said to you, like, okay, what would be in your mind? What would be the way to acquire the midah, the attribute, the quality of zrizus, of being diligent and energetic in my commitment to serving God and doing His mitzvos? What would you have come up with? I don't know what you would have come up with. I'm curious, but what you probably would not have come up with is this idea of the more we appreciate Hashem's chesed in our life, the more we'll naturally want to show up for Hashem. But it is a very beautiful idea, and it really does make sense, and it's human nature. Again, you just always go back to that parent-child example, that parent-child metaphor. The more a child is aware of the kindness that the parent is doing for them, the more motivated that child is going to be to do the things that are going to bring pleasure to the parent, right? So it's the same idea, same exact idea. Okay, right. So let's move
David,
on.
One more thing. Now, I try to look for the best in people. Now, I'm not all that successful, but I make an effort. I have a hard time measuring whether the more observant people actually serve Hashem any better than some less observant people. And it's people are doing what they're supposed to do as far as reminding themselves of their blessings. I mean, doing the prescribed things they're supposed to do, but it doesn't pop out at me that these folks, in what I can observe, are doing any more than other people who don't do these things. Now, is that because I just haven't done a wide enough sampling, or I'm biased, or
No,
just
I
wrong?
don't think so. I actually, unfortunately, I would say that I don't know. There's not necessarily a direct. Well, I would say there is, but it's not. There's not a outright, blatant, direct correlation between religiosity and gratitude towards Hashem. And the reason for that is because Judaism has so many rituals, things that look like rituals, things that we do every single day. It's very, very easy to fall into a sort of robotic approach to your Judaism. So you might see somebody that has all of the trappings of being Orthodox, ultra Orthodox, whatever, but they're doing all the outward mitzvahs, but that doesn't mean that they're living internally with that reality. It doesn't mean they've internalized the ideas and principles. It could be that they were born that way and they've been doing it their whole life, and that's what they do, and that's what they know. So, what you try to teach your kids and what you try to do for yourself is to try to not be like that, and try to allow every mitzvah carries with it a value, a concept, a piece of wisdom, meaning, depth. And you can't, the goal is not to just do the mitzvah, put on my tefillin, that's not the goal. The goal is to put on my tefillin and to think about, as I'm putting on my tefillin, why I'm putting on my tefillin, and what's the meaning of putting on tefillin, and what's the connection that I'm creating with Hashem when I put on my tefillin. If I do that, then it's incredibly powerful and it changes me and transforms me. But if I just go through the motions, then it's going to do nothing for me. So just because a person is outwardly religiously observant doesn't automatically guarantee any deeper internalization of what the meaning in the mitzvahs are supposed to achieve or accomplish. It can, but that requires contemplation. Steve.
So I was listening to something one time and they were talking about it, and it might have a little to do with this, but like, let's say you're driving and you're in traffic and somebody's trying to come in your lane and you're like late for work. So you don't let the person in. But then you realize, right, that's the wrong thing to do. So now next time you make a pointed effort to let the person in, right? So that you're being nice and you're like letting the person in. But then kind of the final level is you just do it because you're thinking about the other person, like maybe they're late for work, and it's just natural to you versus having to try and do it.
Yeah, so I think that's a good example, but then I'll add another one extra layer to that, which is when it becomes natural, don't let it become robotic. In other words, when you've developed that natural good quality, don't lose touch with the value of what it means and that you're doing that, because once it just becomes a robotic action, you can easily lose the meaning or the value behind it. Remember on our trip, Pinchas, the Israeli guy?
Yeah.
So we had on this last trip that we had a few Israeli guys on the bus, and this guy Pinchas told me a funny story. He said the first time he was in America, he said the weirdest thing happened. It was so weird. I said, what was it? He said, I was driving on the highway and I wanted to switch lanes, and there was a guy in front of me and he let me switch. He let me switch lanes. It was the weirdest thing. It was like so here you have a country of Jews who don't let each other get in on the highway, and it's not right. It's not good. Okay, questions. I'm going to take Les and then Scott.
I'm thinking as you're talking that the key for us is the seduction of autopilot in going through life. And the word that comes to mind when you talk about getting your focus straight, doing the mitzvah, is intentionality. That we have to remind ourselves that there is a purpose, and to the extent that we associate that purpose with something as grand as the master of all, who is in total charge, who is in total control of my life, it's a powerful reminder to kind of tap into why it's important to do these things with intention.
Yeah, and I like the autopilot analogy, because you and going back to what Steve was saying, you want it to become automatic, right? As you've taught me before, Les, the concept of muscle memory, right? You want the good behavior and the righteous action to become muscle memory, where it just happens autopilot. But at the same time, you want to have your mind still attached and connected to the meaning and value behind what you're doing, so that it still retains value. So I think that's important.
And I
Yeah.
would add,
David,
something that conflicting concept, because we're striving for a kind of autopilot that taps us into the emotional energy resource that becomes our motive. So that there are two different ways developing that kind of memory. The first is in a complete mechanical way that is bereft of any real sense of connection to something significant. And the other is to be reminded automatically of what it is that connects us so tightly to our efforts to react in a certain way.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Scott Petter, you had a.
Yeah, I had a question. So when you were talking about, doing the right thing and teaching and showing your kids to do the right thing, I'm coming fresh off a day where, my son, who's a teenager, is home from boarding school. He doesn't drive, and it's his first day home. And I decided, you know what, he's got two sets of grandparents that want to see him. He's really in this a-hole phase of life where he doesn't want to do anything except stay in his room. So even though I know it was the right thing to do, I got him in the car and we went to visit both sets of grandparents yesterday, but it led to a huge fight because he didn't want to do it and I'm forcing him to do it. But I'm like, even though I know it's the right thing to do, I'm getting so much not pleasant. I won't repeat the words he said to me, but but in my heart, I know it's
I've had
the right thing.
teenagers. I know what the words were.
Yeah. So, what do you do when the teenager is beyond defiant when you're trying to just do the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, as a parent, it's always a balance and trying to figure out, but you can't just, on one hand, what you did is the right thing, and you have to show, you have to explain to them, and you have to model for them, and you have to, sometimes force them to do the right thing, because on their own, they're teenagers, they're not going to naturally do the right thing. But at the same time, you can't always be on their case, and you can't always be forcing them to do the things that they don't want to do. It's the challenge of being a parent. I don't know. I haven't figured it out. Even after 5 kids, I'm still trying to figure that one out myself. But being aware of the struggle is the main thing. Knowing when to push and when not to push, obviously, is the art.
the first day back may not be the best time, and a way around is have the grandparents visit him.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not always.
That's easier said than done.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Yes and no.
All right.
Okay.
Wait, I have one thing to say. Wait a
Yes.
few more years until he says to you, I'm glad you sat on me. It was worth it.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
Because I had
I'm
a
counting
tough
those
one.
days.
No,
It
that's
will
a-
happen. You'll see. I had a tough one, and all her friends send me Mother's Day cards and tell me you were the only one that was strict. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think Nadine's point is actually a very, very good point, which is that, if you do it not over the top, not constantly, not over the top, but but you do, you're firm with your kids to get them to do the right thing, they will thank you for it eventually, as long as you
And
do it
now
with
she's
love.
my friend. Now she's my friend. But before I had to be her parent. And now we can be friends. It's
Beautiful.
good.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, let's take the next step over here on 142. So the Ramchal is going to demonstrate the universal relevance of this theme. Everything the Ramchal says in this book has universal relevance. That's why we like this book so much, because, here's this book. He wrote this book in the 1720s. It's a long time ago. That's 300 years ago. And literally everything that he writes in this book is imminently relevant even to this day. So he says, now there's no person, whatever his situation may be, whether he is poor or wealthy, whether he is healthy or ill, who does not experience many wonders and kindness in his situation for which he must be grateful to Hashem. For regarding the wealthy or the healthy person, it's obvious why he has to be grateful, as he is surely obligated to Hashem, blessed be he, for his wealth or his health. The poor person too is obligated to Hashem for the fact that even in his poverty, Hashem provides his livelihood in a miraculous and wondrous manner, and he does not let him die of starvation. The sick person as well is obligated to Hashem for sustaining him in life despite the severity of his illness and his wounds, and not allowing him to descend to the grave. The same applies to any similar situation, so that ultimately there is no person who will not acknowledge that he's indebted to his creator. I think the point that he's making here is a very powerful one. First of all, when you look at a range of people, there are some people that have charmed lives, and some people that I know people, we all know people who seem to struggle so much in every area of life. Every area of life is a challenge. Their marriage, their children, their relationships, their ability to earn a living, their health. They may have endless struggles and challenges, and then you meet people who seem to have everything going for them, and that's true. But even the person who does have challenges and does have things in their life that are very difficult can, if they want to, they can come to recognize and appreciate Hashem's kindness in their lives, even in the difficulties and even in the challenges. Now, that's not easy, but it's definitely something that takes work and is a challenge, but it can be done, and people do it all the time. I know people that are poor. I know people that have serious health issues. I know people that are struggling in their marriages, and they're still grateful to Hashem for what they do have and appreciate Hashem for the kindness that he's giving them in their lives. So it's something that everybody does have the ability to do, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Okay. So the Ramchal reiterates the preceding principle and adds another point to contemplate. When a person focuses on these kindnesses that he receives from Hashem, he will certainly be inspired to serve him with alacrity, as I've written above. Okay, that's a repetition. And one will be motivated all the more if he contemplates the fact that all his good fortune depends on the hand of Hashem, blessed be he, who can withdraw it at any moment. And whatever he needs and whatever is essential to him can come only from Hashem, blessed be he, and from no one else. By virtue of this realization, he will certainly not become lax in performing service of Hashem, blessed be he, so that he should not be punished or be deprived of something that's essential to him. Two things he said over here. One, not only are we meant to contemplate the chesed, the kindness that Hashem is always doing for us. He's taking care of our livelihood. He's taking care of our health. He's pumping my heart. He's giving my eyes the ability to see. He's giving my mouth the ability to speak. But also another level to that is that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to stay that way. And like we were saying before, just because it's been that way up until now doesn't mean that's going to be that way tomorrow. Things that are precious to us and that are important to us can be taken away any moment. And if we understand that and we appreciate that, then it makes us even more, it creates an even greater feeling of a debt of gratitude to Hashem, because we realize that all the things that he's giving us, he could take away in a moment, in the blink of an eye. I could lose all these things that I have, but he's not. I have them, and he could take them away. Okay, and if he took them away, I'd be deprived of these things that are so essential to me. So this is all about developing the feeling of gratitude and a feeling of being indebted to Hashem. I'm truly indebted to Hashem. King David used to say this all the time in Psalms, and throughout the Psalms, he talks about, Kos Yeshuos Esav V'Shem Hashem Ekra. How can I possibly repay all that you've done for me, Hashem? All I can do is Kos Yeshuos Esav. All I can do is lift up a kos, lift up a cup, a cup of wine, and make a bracha, make a blessing on it, and call out in gratitude to you, Hashem. And the more we have that awareness, the more we're able to perform our end of the bargain with commitment and energy. And remember, that's an important thing that I just said. Our end of the bargain. There is a bargain. There is a deal over here, right? Hashem is providing for us, and there's an expectation that we're going to do something for him. Now, it happens to work out well that the thing that we can do for him is just to reach our own potential, to become the people that we can be and connect to him. That's all he wants from us. But that's our obligation. So the more we feel, the more he's keeping up his end of the bargain, the more committed and dedicated we are to keeping up our end of the bargain. Okay, let's
David?
finish this. Yes.
David, I have a question that's working in my head.
Yeah.
It's still.
I hope it works. I hope it works in my head too, but we'll see.
A very difficult concept for me to do what you're saying, to believe that everything comes from Hashem. How does it work when you benefit from a mentor, a boss, a parent, a friend, who do things for you that help you to grow, and they're kind of the intermediary. How does Hashem get to me through other people?
I'm not sure if I'm.
I'm not either. Because it doesn't seem to me in my life that everything comes directly from Hashem. I mean, when I look at my marriage, so many things have come from my wife that have improved me as a human being, and I can attribute it to her. But how do I make that extra turn to attribute that to Hashem when it's not coming directly from him to me?
He made the shidduch.
Right. I mean,
That's
that's
true.
part of it, right? And also, we know this from our learning on about bitachon, which is that everybody's just a shaliach. Everyone's just a messenger from Hashem. Everybody is just an agent that is being sent to you to bring about or make a certain occurrence take place in your life. So if we see people as agents of Hashem, for good and for bad, then I think that's the way that we can, make that connection to Hashem. You go to a doctor, the doctor, you go to your chiropractor and he cracks your back and now you can walk. Okay, so you thank the chiropractor, but you also recognize that Hashem sent this doctor to be the shaliach, to the agent to bring about that thing that you needed. So then you connect it to Hashem. It's important to not just to see the results and to see the surface immediate cause and effect on the surface, but to tie the cause and effect back a step to the source, right? So everything can be traced back to the source, but you have to do that. That's your job, right? That's why we make brachas all day long. When you make a blessing on a banana or a piece of fruit, you're connecting the pleasure of that fruit to the source where it came from, Hashem. And yes, there was a farmer who planted the banana tree, and yes, there was a company that brought the trucking company that brought the banana to the supermarket, but ultimately it's from Hashem. But that's our job, is to make that connection. That takes work.
David,
Okay.
it seems like it's absolutely necessary that there's poverty, illness, pain in the world to allow us to reach our potential via the mitzvot to serve Hashem. You can't have a world where people are reaching their potential in the image of Hashem without these things happening and happening a lot. Think of us all these opportunities.
100%. 100%. That's exactly right. Okay, let's finish this chapter and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so now 144. Now you see that I have included in my words here in this chapter the same 3 levels of motivation that I delineated above in chapter 4 regarding Zehirus. Zehirus is the flip side of Zerizus. Zerizus is being motivated to grab the mitzvahs, and Zehirus is being careful and cautious not to transgress the prohibitions. These motivations are effective for Zerizus as well, since, as stated above, Zerizus and Zehirus are essentially 2 aspects of the same subject. So the matter of how to acquire Zerizus may be derived from the related issue of acquiring Zehirus. Okay, if you want to know more what he means by that, go back and review chapter 4. The Ramchal spells out 3 levels of motivation with respect to Zerizus. What I mean is that for those with a wholesome perspective, the inspiration will come from the viewpoint of their obligation to fulfill Hashem's commands and from the viewpoint of the importance of the deeds they are obligated to perform. Right? For a person who's got already fully grasps these concepts, all you have to do is just, that person will automatically recognize and realize his responsibility. For those on a lesser level than the first group, the motivation will come from the viewpoint of their future position in the world to come in its glory. Meaning you tell them, hey, look, you want to have a share in the world to come? Start doing mitzvahs. You want to have eternal existence? Well, the way you create and build and finance your eternal existence is in this world through the mitzvahs, as he's been saying all along. An individual in the second group will be motivated to act with the Zehirus, so that he not suffer humiliation on the day of reward. Meaning he shows up in the world to come and he's like, okay, let me see what my reward, and he's got nothing because he didn't do any mitzvahs. He's not even being allowed into the stadium, let alone sitting behind the dugout. Okay. When he sees the great benefit that he could have achieved by performing these mitzvahs zealously and instead forfeited by being lax in their observance. And for the general populace, the motivation will come from the viewpoint of their position in the world to come and its necessities. For their viewpoint of their position in this world and its necessities for which they are dependent upon Hashem alone, and which they can merit only through performance of mitzvahs, meaning everything you have, you're getting it from Hashem. So it doesn't take a lot to figure out and make the calculation that if everything I'm getting is from Hashem and I'm not giving anything back, there's probably going to come a point in time when Hashem could stop giving me all these things that are so important to me and that make my life so good. It's reasonable to think that if everything's coming from Hashem and I'm being an ingrate and I'm not paying attention and I'm not doing anything on my end, and I'm not keeping up my end of the bargain at all, that eventually Hashem's going to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to hold back some of these things. Maybe then you'll realize, how important it is to be committed to this relationship. So that's a way of explaining this to a person, on the base level. All this is along the lines of what I explained in chapter 4 above. Okay, so that is the methodology for acquiring the Midah of Zerizus. And in chapter 9, we'll begin talking about what are the things that can get in the way and prevent us from acquiring the Midah, this attribute, and how do we avoid those pitfalls. But that's for next week. Okay. Any last questions or comments, insights?
I have
All
a
right.
question, Rabbi.
Hi, Hannah. Yes.
Are you celebrating Thanksgiving? And if so, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone there. I don't know. haven't been invited anywhere yet. It doesn't seem to be a it doesn't seem to be a big thing in Jerusalem. It's kind of weird. But I'm always grateful. I'm always filled with thanks. So even if I don't eat turkey this year, I'm still filled with gratitude. My American passport is a wonderful thing to have, especially when my Israeli one expired. So,
So Rabbi, speaking of Thanksgiving, so can you spend like 2-3 minutes talking about like Sukkot? Isn't that kind of like our Jewish Thanksgiving? Sukkot,
which one?
because Sukkot. Sukkot.
Yeah, Sukkot. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that all of the holidays in their own way have a component of Thanksgiving to them. You know, on Sukkot, we're expressing gratitude to Hashem for protecting us as we traveled for 40 years in the desert. We were protected by Hashem's clouds of glory. They protected us and enveloped us, and that's what Sukkot is about. Pesach obviously is a quality of Thanksgiving because we're thanking Hashem and expressing our gratitude towards Hashem for taking us out of Egypt. And Shavuot, we're expressing our gratitude and our thanksgiving to Hashem for giving us the Torah, which infuses our lives with meaning and value. So they all have that Thanksgiving quality to them. Yeah. Okay, in that
Well,
case,
Can I give one quick example of what you were talking about? Like if we don't appreciate stuff, Hashem can take it away.
yes.
So like when I was in Israel for Shabbos, and gave my phone away, like I really did miss talking to my wife so much on Shabbos because that's something that is like a highlight of the week and what you look forward to. And like you really do miss something when you can't have it. So I think that's a great example of like appreciating something that sometimes you take for granted, that when you don't have it, you really appreciate it.
Wow. Melissa.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
wow, that was really nice of her.
Yeah.
And he said it in front of
There's a lot of, I just want to say there's a lot of gratitude going on over there in that couple. I know because I slept one night in Steve's room and I saw all the notes that he gets from
yeah.
I may have even altered one or two of them.
And I did
All
have to
right.
say, because your dad made everybody look so bad in front of their wives that I had to make up for it somehow.
Nice. By the way, I just want to say I recommend everyone goes back and watches the video from the class from 3 weeks ago, the one that I recorded in Tel Aviv. If you watch carefully, you might find something interesting in that video. Okay. All right. Whatever. Okay. So everyone should have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a great week, and see you all later in the week. Or actually, no yeshiva this week. Rabbi Gadi is going to be teaching something on Thursday on Thanksgiving. So we'll see you next week. Shavua Tov.
Right. Thank you.
Chodesh Tov.
Thanks. Thank you.